The stars hung in silence, cold and uncaring. Somewhere beyond the rim of the Orion Belt, a small blackened escape pod drifted slowly through the endless dark. No engines, no signal, just debris and frozen air tanks trailing behind like broken wings. Inside, a man was still alive. James Carter opened his eyes to dim emergency lights. The pod was small, no more than a metal coffin with a window. A soft alarm beeped near his ear. It had been doing that for hours, maybe days. He didn't know anymore. The air was thin. His throat burned every time he swallowed. He reached for the small control panel above him. It sparked when he touched it. Still dead. The screen had gone black yesterday. Maybe earlier. All he could do now was breathe what little oxygen remained and wait. He turned his head to the side. A crack ran through the viewport. Outside, he could see Caris V, the failed colony world. Nothing more than a brown sphere with clouds like ash. They had fought a battle here. The United Terran Front sent the Halberd, his warship, to intercept a Zarn scouting fleet. It was supposed to be a quick operation, just a recon run. But they were wrong. He remembered the chaos. Explosions, screaming through the comms. Hull breach, fire, then nothing. They said the escape pods were automated, that they'd find survivors, but something went wrong. His pod had been hit, knocked off course, and left to drift. No one came looking. He reached into the compartment by his side and pulled out the emergency ration pack. Empty. He'd finished it yesterday. Maybe the day before. Water was down to the last few drops in a cracked tube. Oxygen. He tapped the tank gauge. It blinked red. Minutes left. James sighed. He leaned his head back and closed his eyes. Silence pressed against the pod like a weight. Not even the stars spoke. Just the slow creak of cooling metal and the soft hum of his slowing breath. He thought of Earth, of his sister in New Paris, of the medal he never picked up, of the officers who shook his hand and smiled for the cameras. "You're one of the best, Carter," they said. "We'll always have your back." Where were they now? He pressed the log recorder, even though he knew the power wouldn't last. A small blue light flickered, still working. "This is Flight Officer James Carter," he said, voice dry and hoarse. "Escape pod Theta 9. No food, no air, no contact. If someone finds this recording, tell command they left me here. Tell my sister I'm sorry." He let go of the button. Something blinked on the edge of the screen. He sat up slowly. The control panel buzzed, just once, and then went dead again. But not before flashing a signal, a sensor ping. It came from nearby, a ship. He wiped the fog off the glass and leaned forward. Nothing but space. Then he saw it, just a shadow moving through the stars, smooth, silent, not human. His heart jumped. A Zarn vessel, long and dark like a spear of black glass. It moved across the void without sound. It was scanning, searching. For him, James froze. He knew the Zarn didn't take prisoners. If they found him, they'd destroy the pod without thinking. Just vaporize it and move on. He reached under his seat, hands trembling, and pulled out a small emergency transmitter. Old tech, manual, no beacon, just a code burst. It had one charge left, one chance. He entered a blind frequency, something ancient, something the newer warships no longer used. He hoped someone, somewhere, might still be listening. He pressed the button. A soft pulse shot out into the void. Then silence returned. He leaned back again. Exhausted, his chest felt heavy. The air was thinner now. Each breath came slower, harder. He stared through the window, eyes locked on the dark shape in the distance. Everything faded. The stars began to blur. Darkness crept in, and then the darkness outside the pod seemed to stretch forever, wrapping the escape capsule like a quiet grave. James Carter was unconscious. His body floated slightly, weightless in the cabin. A red warning light pulsed above his head, blinking slower now like a dying heartbeat. Beyond the cracked viewport, the black shape moved closer. It wasn't human. It was a Zarn ship, sleek, sharp and silent. Its hull shimmered like oil in water, reflecting no stars, blending into the void. The Zarn Dominion had built their vessels for stealth and fear. They didn't roar through space. They slid, like a knife through the dark. Inside the alien vessel, Commander Threx Malak stood tall. He was draped in his rank's cold armor, metal bands that curled up his back like coiled spines. His skin, deep gray with shifting patterns, moved faintly with his breath. Two golden eyes stared at the projection before him. "Single Terran pod," his sensor officer said in a deep, flat voice. "Damaged, no active signal, likely dead." Threx tilted his head. No signal, but still drifting. Curious. He leaned closer to the image. A spark of interest flickered behind his eyes. "Let it float. Do not destroy it." "Yet, why not?" the officer asked. "It poses no threat." "That's exactly why," Threx said. "It's bait." He turned from the screen and walked across the command deck, his long claws tapping softly against the metal floor. The Terrans cling to their wounded. Their weakness is sentiment. If one of their ships is still watching this sector, it will come for the pod. He paused at the viewport, looking out at the dead planet Caris Ver. "This place is a graveyard. Let us set a trap inside it." The Zaan vessel slowed, falling into a wide, silent orbit near the drifting escape pod. It did not attack. It simply watched, waited. Inside the pod, James stirred. His breath came in shallow gasps now. The air was almost gone. His skin was pale. Sweat beaded across his forehead, cold and sticky, but something inside him kept fighting. His fingers twitched. His eyelids fluttered. The old transmitter beside him flickered. It had worked. The blind pulse he sent had traveled, carried on an old Terran emergency band used during the early colony wars. Almost no ships listened to it anymore, but one did. Far beyond Caris Ver, something stirred in the dark. For now, James didn't know. He was barely conscious, but he felt something, a pressure in his chest, like a presence near him. Not death, not yet. Danger. His eyes opened weakly. He saw the Zaan ship outside. Terror surged through him. He reached for the control panel, but it was still dead. The pod wasn't responding. He couldn't move, couldn't hide. He was just floating, trapped, vulnerable, waiting. Inside the Zaan ship, Threx watched the screen. "He's alive," one of the officers said, voice surprised. Threx smiled, just slightly. "Good," he said. "That will make it more believable. A living Terran will cry louder than a dead one. Their allies will hear him." He turned to his crew. "Stay cloaked. Mask emissions. Wait." Back inside the pod, James stared at the alien ship. His hands shook. He knew what they were doing. He knew he was the bait. But he also knew something else. He had sent the signal. Someone might hear it. Someone might come, or they might not. His thoughts blurred as the air grew thinner. He slumped back, gasping. He whispered, "Please, someone." Then silence again, and outside the Zaan ship watched without blinking, like a predator waiting for its prey to wander close enough to strike. The stars didn't change. They just watched, silent, still. James Carter lay motionless in the pod. His skin had gone pale, lips slightly blue. His chest rose and fell in slow, shallow breaths. The red light on the oxygen gauge blinked once, then stopped. Empty. The pod had become a coffin. Outside, the Zaan vessel still waited, hidden in orbit. Commander Threx Malak remained silent on the bridge, watching the tiny pod drift against the backdrop of Caris V's dead skies. His trap was set. There was no need to move. Not yet. But far away, out beyond the sensors of the Zaan ship, something moved. It began as a shadow. No lights, no beacon, no signal. A ship. It broke from warp without sound, cutting into real space like a blade slipping through fabric. It appeared in a silent flash of blue light, then steadied its course. The hull was dented and darkened by battles long past. Its nameplate was cracked but still readable. NTV Revenant. No one had seen the Revenant in years. Most thought it was destroyed. Some believed it was a myth, a ghost ship from an early Terran war that vanished deep in enemy space and never came back. But the ghost had returned. Inside the ship, quiet systems hummed to life. A low, intelligent voice echoed through the corridors. Distress signal detected. Origin, Terran Escape Pod Theta 9. Signal Format. Legacy Protocol 7A. Emergency Status Critical. In the ship's command center, screens flickered. A lone figure sat in the captain's chair. Captain Elara Gray. She was older now. Her hair was silver at the edges, tied back, her face lined with years of war and silence, but her eyes were sharp. She leaned forward. Pull him in. The Revenant didn't hesitate. It locked onto the escape pod's faint transponder code and activated the recovery beam. A blue light wrapped around the pod and gently reeled it in like a hand catching a falling star. As the pod neared the docking bay, mechanical arms extended and latched onto it. The airlock hissed open. Medical drones rushed forward. Inside the pod, James was barely breathing. His pulse was slow, eyes closed, life slipping away. The med drones carried him out and into the Revenant's infirmary. Tubes, wires, and scanners swarmed over him. Oxygen flooded into his lungs. Fluids pumped into his veins. Monitors beeped, first slowly, then faster. He coughed. Once, then again. His eyes opened. White ceiling, soft light, clean air. He gasped. The bed was real. The ship was real. He wasn't dead. A calm voice spoke from above. "You are safe, Flight Officer James Carter. You are aboard the United Terran vessel Revenant. You have been unconscious for 9 hours. Do not move." James blinked, staring at the ceiling. The name hit him slowly. Revenant. That ship was gone. Lost. Everyone knew it. He had studied its last mission in training. An elite strike ship that disappeared in a doomed battle 5 years ago. Impossible, he whispered. Moments later, the door opened. A woman stepped in, tall, calm, carrying the weight of command on her shoulders. Captain Gray. James tried to sit up. She raised a hand. "Easy," she said. "You're still recovering." He nodded, slowly lowering himself back. "You heard my signal. We monitor old bands. Most don't." "We do," she said simply. "Your pod was drifting near a Zaan ship. You're lucky we got to you first." James stiffened. "It's still there." She gave a slight nod. "They're watching, waiting. We came in silent. They haven't seen us yet, but they will." James clenched his fists. "They're using me as bait. We figured as much." James looked at her. "Then what are we going to do?" Gray's face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "We're going to answer them," she said. "The way we used to, before the Terran front forgot how to fight in the dark." James swallowed hard. This wasn't a rescue ship. This wasn't a patrol. This was a warship, a ghost, and now it was alive again. Somewhere deep inside, James felt something return, something he hadn't felt in days. Hope, not soft hope, not gentle, fierce, sharp hope, the kind that burns. The hum of the ship was steady, deep, like a heartbeat. James Carter walked slowly down the corridor of the Revenant, each step echoing off the metal walls. He still felt weak, but the medical crew had cleared him to move. He needed to move. He needed to see for himself. The Revenant was a different kind of ship. There were no crowds of crew members chatting or rushing to duty stations. The corridors were mostly quiet. Lights flickered low to preserve energy. Most systems were automated. Artificial intelligence ran life support, navigation, even combat systems. Only a few humans were left on board. Ghost ship, he thought again, but it wasn't dead. It was waiting. He turned a corner and found himself in the main observation deck. The wide window stretched from floor to ceiling. Stars spilled across it, shining cold and distant. And there, just beyond the curve of Caris V, sat the gone vessel, still watching, still silent. He clenched his jaw. That ship had waited for someone to come for him. It hadn't destroyed the pod because it wanted bait, and now it would want more. Footsteps approached behind him. Captain Gray entered, quiet and calm as always. She joined him at the window. "They're patient," she said. "They've learned that from us." James nodded slowly. "Why haven't they attacked yet?" "Because they don't know we're here." He looked at her, surprised. "We came in under full stealth. Our emissions are masked. Hull temperature is stabilized. They think your signal was wasted, but it wasn't." James turned back to the glass. They're going to find out soon. Gray didn't argue. They always do. They stood in silence a moment longer before she motioned for him to follow. Come, you need to see what we're preparing. They walked together to the command deck. It wasn't large, but it was tight, focused and built for war. Screens lined the walls, tactical maps, targeting systems, readouts of power and shield levels. Most were managed by the ship's core AI, codename Cassandra. Status, Gray said. The AI replied in a smooth, even voice. Gone vessel remains in holding orbit. No active scans, no movement. Estimated time until they detect us. 12 minutes. Gray turned to James. I want your eyes on this, Carter. You were in the field. You saw how they moved. Any insight might help. James hesitated, then stepped forward. He studied the tactical map. The Zaan ship was large, about twice the size of the Revenant. He remembered its shape, the way it moved like a shark through deep water. But something else stood out. They liked to pin targets between gravity wells, he said. Chorus V and its moon. That's their trap zone. If we move in directly, they'll pull us into crossfire. Gray nodded. So what do we do? James pointed to a side route, a narrow passage between the moon's orbit and a debris field from the last battle. We use their trap against them, come in low under their scope, use the debris to mask movement. If we get close enough, we can disable their weapons before they power up. Gray studied the plan. She didn't speak for a moment. Then she gave a slight smile. Good. You'll run tactical with me. James blinked. Me? You're trained. You're thinking clearly. I've lost better officers in worse situations. I need someone who's already been inside the enemy's trap. He swallowed hard. He hadn't stood at a tactical station since his last mission. The one that went wrong. The one that ended with him floating alone in space. But maybe this was his way back. He nodded. I'm in. The ship's alarm system chimed softly. Alert, said Cassandra. Gone vessel increasing scan resolution. Estimated time to detection 6 minutes. Gray gave a firm nod. All stations prepare for engagement. The ship shifted as thrusters warmed. Lights turned red across the walls. Panels slid open, revealing weapon systems and shield controls. James stepped into the tactical console. The screen lit up under his hands. His breath steadied. He wasn't drifting anymore. He wasn't forgotten. He was part of something again. Outside, the Zaan ship began to turn. Inside the Revenant, the Ghost was waking up, and James Carter was ready to fight. The silence shattered. The Revenant surged forward, slipping beneath the shadow of Caris V's dying moon. Engines burned quiet but fast, keeping just below full detection range. The ship didn't roar. It didn't announce itself. It moved like a hunter, low and unseen. James Carter stood at the tactical console, his fingers steady on the screen. Every readout mattered now. Distance, power levels, weapon status, shield integrity. This wasn't a drill. This was war. Captain Gray paced behind him, her voice calm. Target bearing. James replied quickly. Zaan vessel now 32 degrees ahead. Moving slowly. Still scanning. We're below their line of sight. They haven't adjusted. Good, Gray said. Cassandra, weapons ready. The ship's AI responded instantly. Plasma turrets charged. Railguns online. Missile bays locked. Stealth maintained. Hold position until my command, Gray said. The crew was small, but the ship worked like a single mind. No panic, no shouting. Every movement had purpose. James kept watching the screen. The Zaan vessel, long, sleek, cold, hovered just above the planet's curve. It was still waiting for prey, still focused on the escape pod, which now drifted lifeless and empty. They hadn't noticed it was already opened, that James was gone. Their trap was still set, but the Revenant was already inside it. Captain Gray stepped to the center of the command deck. Prepare to strike. The ship's systems shifted. Lights dimmed to combat red. Turrets rotated silently beneath the hull. Missiles moved into position. James zoomed in on the enemy ship. They're powering weapons, he said. I think they just noticed the pod was breached. Gray didn't flinch. Fire. The first railgun round launched. No sound, just force. It tore through space at incredible speed and smashed into the Zaan vessel's port side, ripping through outer plating like paper. 1 second later, the plasma turrets lit up. Bolts of blue fire arced across the void and struck the Zaan ship's engines. Secondary explosions followed. Sharp, fast flashes that lit up the night. James saw power levels on the enemy vessel spike. They're awake, he said. Shields going up, weapons charging. They're coming around. Then we hit harder, Gray replied. Cassandra, evasive pattern Delta, target their command bridge. Yes, Captain, the AI said. The Revenant twisted through the debris field, dodging incoming fire. Laser blasts missed by inches, flashing past the hull. One bolt grazed the side, metal shrieked as heat seared through the outer layer. But the ship held. Inside, James worked fast, locking new targets. Bridge coordinates set, launching strike missiles. 3 missiles blasted from the bay. They flew silent, weaving through the wreckage of old Terran ships. Then, impact. A direct hit on the Zaan bridge. The alien ship staggered, spinning slightly in space. Its lights flickered. Fires broke out along the central spine. James leaned over his screen, reading internal damage. Life support failing. Weapon systems down to 30%. Gray gave a short nod. They're not dead yet. The enemy ship, even wounded, was still dangerous. Its rear turrets fired one last volley. A plasma blast struck the Revenant's side. The ship rocked hard. Lights flickered. James grabbed the console to stay upright. Shield down to 60%. Cassandra warned. Minor hull breach in Section 9. Contained. James wiped sweat from his brow. They're desperate now. Gray narrowed her eyes. End it. James locked in the final target. Reactor core. Firing. A single railgun round launched. It hit directly. The Zaan ship cracked. The explosion wasn't loud, but it was bright. A white flash swallowed the center of the enemy vessel, then collapsed into itself. Fragments of alien metal scattered through space like broken teeth. Fires flickered, then faded. The ship was gone. The screen cleared. Silence returned. Inside the Revenant, no one cheered. There was no celebration, just quiet relief. Controlled breathing. A moment of stillness. James looked at the wreckage. His hands trembled, not with fear but with something else. He had survived. Again, but this time he wasn't alone. Captain Gray stepped beside him. Well done, she said simply. James nodded. We weren't supposed to win that fight, he said. She looked at him. No, but we weren't supposed to find you either. James stared out the window, watching the last pieces of the Zaan ship drift away. I think they'll come looking, he said. Gray folded her arms. Then we'll be ready. The Revenant turned slowly, leaving the dead battlefield behind. Its mission wasn't over. Not yet. The battlefield drifted behind them. Broken metal, dead silence, and the dim light of Caris V. What remained of the Zaan warship scattered in the void. Shards of hull, burnt panels, a cloud of frozen gas. The Revenant sailed through the wreckage without slowing. Engines humming softly. Inside, the crew moved with quiet purpose. Repairs had already begun. Drones welded fresh armor over damaged sections. Energy was being rerouted to shields and life support. Fires were gone. Breaches sealed. The ship, like its name, had returned from the dead, and it wasn't finished. James Carter sat in the observation deck again, staring out at the stars. He had removed his flight jacket, now patched and stained, and folded it on his lap. His eyes were tired but calm. His chest rose with steady breath. For the first time in days, he wasn't waiting to die. Footsteps approached. Captain Gray entered without a word and stood beside him, hands behind her back. Together they watched the stars pass. We'll reach the Terran border in 2 days, she said. James nodded. Do you think Command will even believe it? Gray gave a short, dry smile. They might not. Doesn't matter. He glanced at her. She continued. They wrote this ship off. They left us for lost. We didn't stop. You were left behind too, but you didn't give up either. James turned back to the glass. He remembered floating in that pod, cold, alone, ready to vanish, and now here he was, alive, changed. "Why did you come back?" he asked quietly. Gray paused, then answered, "Because someone always needs to." They stood in silence a moment longer, then she motioned for him to follow. "We have something for you." He followed her through the corridors, now lit brighter than before. Life had returned to the Revenant. Even with its quiet halls there was energy now, a heartbeat. They entered a small control room near the communications tower. On the desk sat a clean recording device, military standard. One light blinked slowly. Gray motioned to the chair. "If you want to send a message to Earth, now's the time." James hesitated, then sat down. He pressed the record button. "This is Flight Officer James Carter, formerly assigned to the Halberd, survivor of the Caris Vive battle." He paused. "I was left behind. No rescue came. No orders reached me. But something else did. A ship we all thought was gone. The Revenant." He looked into the camera. "We're alive. We fought back. We won." Another pause. He added, "We're not just survivors. We're the ones who remember. The ones who still fight. The ones who weren't forgotten. Because we didn't let ourselves be." He stopped the recording. Gray nodded once and picked up the device. "We'll send it on encrypted channels. If Command is still listening, they'll hear it." James stood. "What happens next?" Gray answered without hesitation. "We keep moving. We find others like you, like us. We strike when no one expects. We remind them what humans can do when they stop waiting for orders." James followed her out of the room. As they walked through the corridor, crew members nodded at him. He was one of them now. Not a guest, not a rescued pilot, a soldier again, a spark in the dark. Back in the control center, Cassandra, the ship's AI, spoke. "Coordinates set for fallback point Sigma 7. Stealth protocols active. Awaiting command." "Engage," Gray said. The stars shifted. The Revenant vanished into the black. James sat at the viewport, helmet beside him, eyes sharp, heart steady. He wasn't left behind anymore. He had returned with fire,